Here with their reaction, Chris Swecker, former FBI assistant director, and Jonathan Fahey, former acting ICE director and former federal prosecutor. Jonathan, tonight there's a lot of questions about vetting. How this guy got into the United States. President Trump addressed it yesterday. Let's watch.
U.S. officials say that the suspect worked very closely with the CIA in Afghanistan for years, that he was vetted, and the vetting came up clean.
He went cuckoo. I mean, he went nuts. And that happens, too. It happens too often with these people.
Your DOJ IG just reported this year that there was thorough vetting by DHS and by the FBI of these Afghans who were brought into the U.S. So why do you blame the Biden administration?
Because they let them in. Are you stupid? Are you a stupid person? You're just asking questions because you're a stupid person. When it comes to asylum, when they're flown in, it's very hard to get them out. No matter how you want to do it, it's very hard to get them out. But we're going to be getting them all out now.
You got to love President Trump. Are you a stupid person? To the reporter. But, you know, Jonathan, we're talking about this vetting. He went through intense vetting. The CIA senior officials said that he also was checked through the National Counterterrorism Center as well. He was clean on all checks. The group that helped resettle Afghan allies said that he underwent multiple rounds of vetting before he was granted asylum in April. But yet he shot 2 National Guards members. So what can you tell us about this vetting? Is it efficient enough?
Well, just as a whole, the vetting they were doing was wholly inadequate. They were just basically running names through databases and things like that. They weren't doing substantive interviews. And there's a clip of Alejandro Mayorkas that he's been talking to. They've been playing a lot today on Fox where he's talking about how they didn't interview people. Remember, they brought in 190,000 people after the withdrawal from Afghanistan. So there's no way you can vet any of these people. And it's also important to know what was going on in the country at the time. Biden had the border opened, so much of the resources were dealt with processing migrants at the border, so there just weren't enough really to do any meaningful vetting. And really the default should be and should have been, if you can't vet someone thoroughly enough, they don't come in. We should put American safety ahead of the interest of migrants, illegal aliens, or anything else. And the Biden administration never did that, not a single time during the entire administration.
But see, Chris, what makes me worried is, you know, this guy went through more vetting than the millions of people who came here under the Biden administration. We had a record number of people on the terror watch list that were, you know, apprehended at the southern border. So how many terrorists are in the United States right now?
Well, I'd say there are quite a few. I mean, I would call that reporter's attention to the 4 Inspector General reports that I just read that called out the inadequate vetting. They even called out the fact that DHS would issue identification to someone who self-identified. That means they came into this country with no identification whatsoever on them. Then that had to be by design. I would be most suspicious of those individuals. But yet the IG verified that they issued them documents and let them travel inside the country and come inside the country and then travel wherever they wanted to go. So look, a lot of us called this out, Jonathan included, back during the Biden administration, when all these people were streaming across the border, and asylum was the program that was abused the most, in my opinion. All you had to do was say, come up with some, just some of the jargon that they've read in some of the paperwork that regarding asylum. They just spit it out, and they were granted entry into the country under some conditional basis. So that was a huge gaping hole in our national security, and it remains to this day. I mean, we said they'll be held to pay, and we're paying for it right now.
You know, but Jonathan, President Trump's trying to do something about it. He's trying to pause the visa issuance for individuals traveling on Afghan passports. He's also pledged to permanently pause migration from third world countries. The U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services said it's also going to re-examine green cards issued to individuals who have migrated from at least 19 different countries. But as we've seen time and time again, Jonathan, the courts keep trying to stop him. So, I mean, can this stuff make its way through the courts, or will it get stopped?
Yeah, he will have to fight every inch of the way. But the great thing about it is he's determined to fight this out. And if you really think about what he just announced today, it's totally common sense. Third world countries, and it's not to disparage third world countries, but there's no way to meaningfully vet people coming from these countries. And President Trump knows our immigration system should be designed to benefit Americans. And if you can't show that a migrant coming in benefits our country and doesn't pose a safety risk, they shouldn't come in. And again, like Chris was saying, with the abused asylum system under Biden, where they actually essentially encouraged people to falsely claim asylum because they knew there wasn't some widespread torture or persecution going on in our hemisphere, but they shepherded in 10 million people, and now we are going to reap the consequences in a bad way for years to come. And I hate saying it, but there's going to be more of these situations where we're going to be here, and we were all saying it back then, but it didn't matter because the Biden administration, their highest priority was shepherding in as many migrants and illegal aliens as they could because they thought that would benefit them politically, and they put the safety, national security secondary to their political agenda.
You know, it's political, and then, you know, we're also told as well that it's about empathy. You know, this individual came here under Operation Allies Welcome. A neighbor in the neighborhood where the suspect lives said it's a very liberal neighborhood. They're very welcoming. You had a lot of these Afghan refugees living there, Chris. So is that empathy going to get Americans killed?
Yeah, it is. I mean, look, the fact that this person worked with a unit that worked with the CIA doesn't impress me one bit. Many of those individuals are pure mercenaries. Many of them played both sides of the fence for their own reasons. And we're talking about a place that is a hotbed of terrorism. ISIS, Al-Qaeda, any number of other terrorist organizations. So, you know, we don't know what this guy's loyalties are, and we don't know what his mental state is. And, you know, we're not hearing anything about his motivation, but I can pretty much guarantee you when it comes out that he was angry at the United States, angry at this country that sheltered him, and that's why he did what he did. So, and maybe even groomed by other people outside the country. So, yeah, empathy is great. These people, the people that truly did help us, deserve asylum. But trying to vet as many as Jonathan said, there 70,000, whatever the number is, 160,000, so quickly is impossible to do, especially from a country that has no records of anything.
Although it seems like suicidal empathy. Jonathan, we want to get your quick reaction to this because we just learned that the Trump administration is pausing all asylum decisions until they can ensure that every alien is vetted and screened. Your reaction to that, sir?
That's a great idea because we already know they weren't vetted properly. So let's do a thorough vetting, and it's a privilege to come to this country. And if we can't vet someone or have a high degree of confidence that they are going to not commit an act of terrorism or an act of violence, they should be gone. And empathy, like you're saying, empathy is one thing, but public safety goes first, and the Biden administration and the Democrats have used the empathy card to manipulate people into policies that are bad for Americans, bad for public safety, bad for national security.
Yep. Chris and Jonathan, thank you for breaking that down for us. We appreciate you both. Thank you. Joining me now is West Virginia Governor Patrick Morrisey. So we've got to get to that in just a moment, Governor, and it's great to see you, sir.
Good to see you.
I'm so sorry for these guardsmen and for your state right
terrible.
now. I just want to get an update on Andrew Wolf. How's he doing? I know you spent yesterday with his family.
You know, I will say that all of our hearts and prayers in West Virginia are going out to the Wolf family. And we have a hero here in West Virginia. This person, everyone loved him. He was courageous. And right now he's fighting for his life. He's in very serious condition. I'm not going to play doctor and opine on what's going to happen, but everyone needs to step up and pray for this individual. The parents are welcoming prayers. They only had one request from me, Lisa. It was send as many prayers as possible to help lift him up, and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, so folks at home, make sure that you pray for Andrew Wolf and his family as well, because it's not how they wanted to spend Thanksgiving, so we pray for them. Now, Governor, I got to get to what we heard at the intro. I mean, the Democrats here on the left, they're trying to blame President Trump. They're saying the National Guard shouldn't have been here in Washington, D.C. When you hear that, what do you think?
Well, first of all, it's outrageous, and it shows a level of disrespect to the people that put their lives on the line every single day. So I want to make sure people understand what we're dealing with here. Right now in the district, there are about 160 to 170 West Virginia National Guardsmen, and they're here on a voluntary basis. That means that they sign up for the mission of protecting the city. They believed in the mission. They want to support their state. They want to support their country. And by the way, the mission is working. By all accounts, crime is way down in D.C., and the Guardsmen will tell you, by and large, that what they're doing is working. When people see law enforcement officers walking around, when they see National Guardsmen walking around, they welcome it. They want safety. That's what the fundamental of government is about: protect your people. They were protecting people. And for folks to try to point them out and somehow give them some responsibility of what happened, that's outrageous. That's politics that needs to be rejected. But that's what we've seen coming from the left in recent years. But now we have to say absolutely not. What President Trump is doing is he's cleaning up from the Biden border disorder that we saw. And when I was Attorney General, Lisa, I used to sue over those policies all the time. But there's a lot of leftovers. And I think what you saw the president do today in terms of the vetting policies and the announcement on the visas, those are good things to do, because we have to have dramatic action to make sure this kind of absurd violence never happens again.
You know, we've seen, the people on the left, obviously they're furious with what President Trump's doing in some of these cities. We've seen the attacks on ICE. We've seen sort of this rhetoric. It seems like if you wear a badge or a uniform, you're subject of attack from the left. Are they putting our National Guardsmen in a dangerous position here with some of the rhetoric?
Look, I just saw some of the clips here, and it really looks like they're pointing a finger at them and saying these people are part responsible. Once again, these are volunteers. These people believe in the cause. And how could any right-minded person not believe that it's right to clean up a city? I mean, the statistics are so clear of how crime is going down. But I think there's something broader here. When you look at what the left tried to do with the defund the police movement, and they wanted to make it so difficult to be in law enforcement. Now they want to make it so difficult to be in the National Guard. They want to make it so difficult to be one of the troops defending our country with honor. We're not going to let them do that. When the evildoers come at us, we have to stand up and say, no, that's what we're doing in West Virginia.
Yeah, and they're telling us, first of all, D.C. wasn't dangerous and they should have never been there. Right. And then now we put them in a dangerous position. And it's like, well, which one is it? Know? So, but we're praying for your state. We're praying for those Guardsmen. We're praying for Andrew Wolf that he's going to pull through, Governor. So thank you for being us here tonight and updating us. Thank you, sir.
Terror striking on the eve of Thanksgiving. President Trump is vowing an immigration crackdown after a horrific attack in D.C., a permanent pause on migration from third world countries. It comes after 2 National Guard members were ambushed while on patrol near the White House. Right now, charges against the Afghan national accused of shooting them have been upgraded to first-degree murder after 20-year-old Army Specialist Sarah Beckstrom died of her injuries. And the other victim, Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf, is fighting for his life while in critical condition. He is 24. The pure evil suspect accused of doing this allegedly drove across the country, then laid in wait for hours before opening fire. And now troubling questions are being raised about his vetting after it was revealed that he entered the United States in 2021 under Biden's Operation Allied Welcome program during America's chaotic exit from Afghanistan. Trump giving the media a photographic refresher of the chaos.
I have a picture of a plane. This is what it looked like when they came in. It was total bedlam. Do you remember that period of time? Total bedlam. People crammed onto the plane. And this atrocity reminds us that we have no greater national security priority than ensuring that we have full control over the people that enter and remain in our country.
President Trump then scolding a reporter for asking this question.
U.S. officials say that the suspect worked very closely with the CIA in Afghanistan for years, that he was vetted, and the vetting came up clean.
He went cuckoo. I mean, he went nuts. And that happens, too. It happens too often with these people.
Your DOJ IG just reported this year that there was thorough vetting by DHS and by the FBI of these Afghans who were brought into the U.S. So why do you blame the Biden administration?
Because they let them in. Are you stupid? Are you a stupid person? You're just asking questions because you're a stupid person. When it comes to asylum, when they're flown in, it's very hard to get them out. No matter how you want to do it, it's very hard to get them out. But we're going to be getting them all out now.
And right on cue, the left is seemingly blaming Trump for the tragedy because he deployed the National Guard to D.C. The New Yorker's Jane Mayer tweeting, "This is so tragic, so unnecessary. These poor guardsmen should never have been deployed. I live in D.C. and watched as they had virtually nothing to do but pick up trash. It was for political show, and at what a cost." And others are weighing in.
The uniform is politics extended into the public space.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, two West Virginia National Guard soldiers who had nothing to do with this person, they did not ask to be deployed in this way, and their military members, by and large, want to be left out of the politics.
Those two families are going to be sitting at home saying, should they have been there in the first place?
The president looks everywhere except inward to blame his own policies. We need to make sure that we don't have our military deployed in our cities. It's never the president's fault or his policies when it comes to his reaction, and it's pretty disgusting.
It's such a shame, Paul, that immediately the knee-jerk reaction from the liberal left is one to blame the president, whose only goal and only priority has been the safety of Americans. He did not politicize uniforms. He recognized that the uniforms stand for only the flag.
Yeah, it didn't take long, did it? Couple of things here. First of all, this is like blaming aspirin for your headache, right? Because he's putting them out there to try to deter crime. And the thing that they never talk about is that it's working. And there's nothing funnier to me than when the left decides all of a sudden that they are in support of the people in uniform. You know, they're nuancing this here. It took the New York Times about 5 seconds to come up with the line that the reason he did this is because he lost his mind because of what we exposed him to in Afghanistan. So implicitly, it's our fault. Look, let's just expand the story real quick. First of all, this is going to go to a death penalty case. It's likely going to be terrorism. So we'll see how to run. Let's get that part out of the way. Secondly here, we are in a post-interventionist world. That's really, for me, the lesson here, okay? The world is very, very small. We need to learn that we can go into these nations, and we had to after 9/11, all right? We have to recognize the Taliban had incubated al-Qaeda. UBL was there. We had to go in. We go in, we want to break things and kill the people that killed our people, and then that's it, all right? Otherwise, don't get involved, because what do we get for it other than blame? And so we can't go in and try to fix everything. This is not post-World War II America. You can't run. We don't have that. Every nation in history that has failed, any empire. We're not an empire. We're not looking to take places over and make them part of America. But that said, history teaches us they've all failed because of overreach. We're not going to run Afghanistan into a democracy. They don't have the infrastructure. And as for vetting goes, that's the point. You can't go into a place that's operating in the 7th century and say, you know what, we vetted these people. You don't know who you're talking to. This is the guy's second cousin. He wants this guy to go to America because he wants the checks to come back. I've seen this. He wants the check to go back home where his checks from wherever he's working can support an entire village. So you can't vet these guys. There's no computers. There's no central database. The point is you can't do it. And so as a result, we shouldn't do it. And we have to recognize it's time to retrench at home. I'm not saying Fortress America. You have to be engaged. The world is too small. But once you get involved here, all we get is blame. And we end up in situations like this because the plum we hold out is if you help us in country, we'll bring you here. That's the carrot that everybody around the world wants. They want to be here. And when we do that, we put ourselves in this position.
And Charlie, all right, let's look at what we inherited. So to Paul's point, it was difficult to vet. Well, the Biden administration didn't even give it a decent shot whatsoever. I spoke with Jessica Vaughn, who said it wasn't Operation Allies Welcome. It was Operation Everyone Welcome. Yeah. The whole point was that there was a not even attempt to recognize that our real allies needed to be here. And clearly we let in an unimaginable number of ones who shouldn't. And even if there's just one, that one is the one that engaged in murder. So the question is, to Paul's point, though, you know, the biggest challenge is not only the sheer volume, but also the fact that we're dealing with a lack of veracity on any front. We don't know the real names. We don't have a type of authority that we can count on to double check anything. So we now have inherited potentially an incendiary device that is still within our country in the form of thousands of individuals.
Yeah, it's not like the Taliban has a database that we're going to use to identify who's safe to come into our country and who's not. I don't know what is worse, whether you let 70,000 people, which is about how many people we had come in under this program, into the country without vetting them, or having maybe vetted them and they let this guy into the country. I don't know which is worse. I think they're both really bad. On a political point, I think that Democrats are in a real bind here, trying to blame Trump for this, because it's pretty cold solace to say, well, you know, they had it coming because they were deployed. Well, I mean, are you kidding me? Are you going to actually make that argument in front of voters? And do you think that that's a winning argument? I don't think it is. I think every single one of the people that has been deployed, including these two service members, they've saved lives. If you look at the statistics in D.C., in Chicago, and we can have a great debate about whether or not we should use military soldiers to enforce laws in these cities, and that's a fine debate to have. But you can't deny that every single one of those people walking around has managed to save lives in the places where they have been deployed. There are a lot of questions looking forward, and these are the things that I'm most concerned about. Is there going to be a thorough vetting now that we recognize that the vetting either didn't work or they didn't do it? Also, this guy was living, according to the New York Post, in a $2,000 a month apartment, speaking very poor English at best, playing video games. What was he doing? Yeah. Did he have a job? Are taxpayers the ones that are on the hook for paying for his rent and paying? What else were we paying for? I want to get to the bottom of all of that.
Yeah. And Kat, I wanted to ask you about, so we've talked about the blame game, that people are blaming the president. But there was also a really disheartening amount of sitting senators and others who were blaming National Guardsmen. We had Dick Durbin saying that National Guardsmen were terrorizing U.S. cities. Alyssa Slotkin saying that they were going to shoot Americans. Is that kind of rhetoric potentially what leads to someone taking a gun all the way across the country and taking it out on National Guardsmen?
Well, this is what politicians always do, right? And this man who did this was obviously evil. I believe President Trump called him an animal. I think that's the perfect word for him. I think just widening out, I would like to see accountability. Overall, I think that there's a huge lack of accountability, particularly, I mean, in this specific instance, mistakes were made. You know, this guy was not just here. He was at one point being paid by the United States government. Who signed off on that? Do they still have a job? Probably, but they probably shouldn't. And I see this as just one small piece of decades of things that have gone wrong in Afghanistan that there's been no accountability for. While we were over there, then, of course, this disastrous joke of a withdrawal. As all of you guys know, my husband fought in Afghanistan. That was a very, very difficult time for him and for a lot of the other people who were over there. And we have this. So when it comes to this stuff, I would like to see less of a politically motivated kind of blame game of, well, it was this side did this and this, and an actual real search for actual accountability. Because we have people who make mistake after mistake that costs lives and people die. And the people responsible keep their jobs. And not only do they keep their jobs, we don't even know who they are half the time. And this is going back decades and decades. I don't have a lot of hope of this ever happening because people get so lost in the politics of it all. But I, for one, am disgusted. And I think that we are long owed some answers on this stuff.
Yeah, and for me, the vehicle of the lack, or driving the train toward lack of accountability, is in large part the mainstream media. Just today, Reuters saying the president claims without evidence that the vetting program did not work. Isn't the evidence Sarah Beckstrom?
Absolutely. And can we talk about her for a second?
Please.
20 years old. She joined the military police with the hopes of having a career in the FBI. Yeah. Her former boyfriend, Adam Carr, described her as a caring and tender-hearted woman. She was known to enjoy nature, road trips, spending time with her family. She was not eager at first to go to D.C. and be a part of the troops patrolling, but she said that she started to like it. She was using her time to visit museums and memorials and making the most of her new environment. 20 years old and gone.
And notice, the judge in D.C. comes down and says, I know she stayed the order, but she said, these are illegal deployments. Notice she didn't say, oh, you know what? Alyssa Slotkin told me I can disobey this. Right. She was out there.
Right.
Right. Oh, just tragic.
Let's bring in now Republican New York Congressman Mike Lawler, a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman, good to have you. You know, the president might be right. Maybe this guy went cuckoo after he was vetted not once, but presumably twice when he received asylum this year. Maybe there's something that happened and he snapped. We will wait to find out if we can actually talk to him. But I want to play for you this sound right now because the questions about vetting are incredibly serious. There are so many more people that came, and we saw those pictures of them packed in those planes. And we really don't understand completely what this vetting process was like. This is Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, the former Secretary of Homeland Security, at a hearing with the Senate, trying to explain to a senator what he does and maybe doesn't know about the vetting of these people. Watch.
How many of them were vetted before they got on the plane?
Out of Afghanistan?
Yeah.
Cannot speak to that.
Are you telling this committee under oath that 99% of the people who got on these planes in Afghanistan were vetted by our government before they got on that plane?
I want to be very clear because precision...
Because you're not.
No. Senator, if I may, you are asking me about planes from transit countries, the third countries...
I'm talking about people who got on the plane in Kabul airport.
No, I can't speak to that.
I mean, that doesn't spark confidence to anybody that's watching that. So when Congress returns next week, should you hold hearings and investigations into what this vetting was?
Well, there's no question that the Biden administration created a crisis on multiple fronts, starting with the disastrous withdrawal in Afghanistan that not only left Afghan allies on the ground, but left Americans on the ground, and then took people into the country that clearly were not vetted in their entirety. And that, of course, preceded the disaster at our southern border, in which they let in over 10.5 million migrants, completely unvetted. I can tell you from my time visiting the border, if they couldn't identify somebody through 4 databases, they simply gave them the name that they said they were. It was a complete debacle at every level. And so the Trump administration obviously has come in and tried to clean up our immigration system. They have effectively secured the border and stopped the massive influx of illegal immigration. But you have over 10.5 million people that came into this country in the last 4 years, including those who came from Afghanistan. And there's no way the Biden administration was doing an effective job of vetting them. That much is clear. Now, with that being said, one of the things that I have been very clear about, though, is that you have people that did help us on the ground in Afghanistan that were critical to our success and to that of our men and women in the military. And you don't just throw the baby out with the bathwater here. There has to be a process. We want to make sure that everybody is very clearly vetted, that they meet the strictest of requirements. But I want to stress, you cannot cast aspersions on every single person that came from Afghanistan, because there were a lot of people who did help us during that 20-year war.
And you're right.
And if they go back to Afghanistan, they're going to be killed.
And there were many Republicans in the House and Senate that were trying to get these people out of that country. I remember that. But I want to ask you, because you said the process has to change, and the Trump administration is trying to change that process. They want to re-vet everybody, all these green card holders. Do they even have the manpower to do that? And we're talking about a heavy lift. And I remember we barely had people to get, the SIV applicants, that process going. We barely had people to adjudicate the asylum claims down at the southern border. Does Congress need to allocate emergency funds here to help this administration do what they want to do?
Well, in the Working Families Tax Cut Act, we did increase funding for Border Patrol, for immigration and customs officials, and for USCIS. And so obviously there is a lot of work that has to be done to go through the, over 10.5 million people that came into this country, most of them illegally, many of the people coming without a comprehensive vetting, and the Biden administration releasing people from all around the globe into the U.S. This has created the crisis that the administration is trying to unwind. And so, yes, we need to extend resources. If the administration needs Congress through the appropriations process to extend more resources to build up manpower, then we're going to have to do that to make sure that our communities are safe and that our National Guard members are not put in jeopardy like this.
Yeah, this cannot happen again. It's been atrocious to watch the last 48 hours. Congressman Mike Lawler, thank you very much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.